The Florida Gators' first official visit weekend featuring 17 official visits is wrapped up. Here's how I'm feeling about it. Here's what we know only here on Locked On Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. Happy Monday. I'm Brandon Olson. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find my written work with Whole Nine Sports, Giants Country, NFL 33. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more when you visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And we're talking about this big official visit weekend, 17 kids on campus. We're going to talk about half of them, maybe a little more than that. I'm going to say this because even last week, I was like, Florida, you got to get some of these commits. You got to get something here. And the more I've spoken to people just connected to the program, the more it's like, all right, well, you might, but don't get your hopes up because we saw Florida's approach to this last year. Florida's approach last year was stay in constant contact with kids, chip away, chip away, chip away, but don't pressure them. And they shied away from it a bit after getting initial pushback from Gators fans of just, how is there nothing going yet? Class ended up being pretty good. But they're back to that. They're back to the slow burn style, which it's fine with me. I have no issues with that. From what I've heard, all the recruits are just like, oh, this visit was awesome. I loved it a ton. There's been a ton of progress, and I know from the coaching staff as well that they also feel pretty good about some of these. And I'm going to start off with Jeremiah Smith because obviously he's the big ticket item here in this first week of official visits. Ohio State commit. The Florida Gators feel comfortable about the progress that they're making with Jeremiah Smith. This is one of those times where I know that there's a lot of optimistic Gators fans that go, he's going to flip, no doubt in my mind. And there's a lot of pessimistic Gators fans that go, no shot, he's a Buckeye. It's a troll, which is like, you're a troll. If you think every recruit that takes a visit and isn't committing to Florida is trolling, congratulations, you're an idiot. That's just getting that one right out of the way. But whether or not you feel like he's going to flip or not, it's a fact. Florida's making progress here. And with this, like this recruitment specifically in Jeremiah Smith, it's something that we know whether he doesn't flip from Ohio State or does flip to Florida or Georgia, it's going to come down to National Signing Day. And at this point in the game, with this Florida Gators coaching staff and the approach that they take to things, that's a good thing. Because Florida, they cook with these slow burn styles, like I said. Like DJ Lagway will always be the main selling point to get Jeremiah Smith to be a Florida Gator. As long as DJ Lagway is a Florida Gators commit, which guess what? DJ Lagway is going to be a Florida Gators commit until he's a Florida Gators signee and then a Florida Gators player. Cool beans. So as long as DJ Lagway is in the picture, Jeremiah Smith is a possibility. Not a probability, not a likely thing, but it's a possibility. And I don't mean like, is it Dumb and Dumber? Like, so you're saying there's a chance. I mean, it's a legitimate possibility here. So there's that. Also, because I don't like to do this generally, but I'm going to do it now because it's blowing up Twitter right now. If we're going to play like the lunatic social media, a Charlie Day whiteboard game, then we're going to play it. And Jeremiah Smith, for a long time, has not had most of his Ohio State pictures and everything on his Instagram and all that. That's fine and dandy. He's had Florida pinned to the top. He's had that too for a while. He did recently remove Ohio State commit from his profile, his bio. And on Twitter, at least, he's been posting like Ohio State fans bashing him for taking this visit. And I'll say this too, because I'm going to talk about it a little bit with Jonathan Echols. You are a scumbag if there's a kid taking a visit somewhere and you're trash talking him. You're a scumbag. Okay. You've never had to make a decision at the level, at the magnitude. You've likely never had to make a decision at the magnitude that these kids have to with this many eyes on you. Everybody that went to college had to decide where to go to college. A bunch of people have had to make big life decisions. Sure, you have. But you haven't had to do it while literally like hundreds of thousands and millions of people are watching where you're going to be mad if you don't go to the school they support. Like, you've never had to be in that seat. I've never had to be in that seat. You're a scumbag. It's as simple as that. If a kid takes a visit and you're like, oh my God, what a piece of garbage, just look in the mirror and say that, because you're really just talking about yourself. That's all I'm saying about that. That's where I end on that one. I will say one player that I wanted to talk about was Kris Jones here, because he's someone that, one, I'm incredibly excited for. Just in the future, I'm incredibly excited to see what he can become. And two, it feels like a when, not if, about Kris Jones being a Florida Gator. I'm recording this late Sunday night. It's currently the second half of the Nuggets and Heat game. That's when I'm recording. And if he doesn't commit by the time this comes out Monday morning, I'm going to look at it this way, because I was told, hey, he's either committing Sunday, Monday, or he's going to take that Georgia visit and commit after. Okay? So that's my expectation here. Whether or not he commits by the time this episode comes out, my expectation is that Kris Jones is going to take that Georgia visit, but I'm still feeling pretty good about it. Like I think he's just taking the Georgia visit because he said a visit. He's sticking to it, and it's as simple as that. And while he is a Florida Gators, we'll say lean right now, he's not a Florida Gators commit. So it's really nothing to be too concerned about if you're a Florida Gators fan. He's not in like he's not a Gator right now. Don't be mad, okay? He's going to take that Georgia visit is my expectation. That's what I was told. So that's what I'm going to roll with. But again, still a heavy Florida Gators lean. I think that Georgia might have gotten into this game a little bit too late. But also with Kris Jones, Jay Bateman's the big selling point here. Kris Jones has said that. Jay Bateman is a Virginia guy. He coached with UNC, which isn't, super close to the Fairfax area, but he coached UNC. He recruited Virginia consistently. He recruited North Carolina and that area. So Jay Bateman's a big selling point here for Kris Jones, and I think that will lead to Kris Jones being a Florida Gator. It's just a matter of when that happens, in my opinion. David Stone is a big name that I will honestly say I don't know how to feel about him. He seemed to be posting and having a great time during the visit. He declined to do interviews afterwards. But I'm also just like, he was already an Oklahoma lean was the expectation. And he is going to have so much competition for his signature. I'm expecting this one to drag out into the late summer, maybe even the fall. But because of that, I don't think Florida is going to, back off of him. But I do think Florida is not full court pressing him right now. I think Florida is full court pressing guys who have dates set for when they want to commit and are intending on sticking to those, which we'll talk about a few of those just today in general. But we are about to talk about some other commits or some other recruits that were on campus, hopefully going to be commits. But first, today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. And I will tell you this, I have been having a great time with betting home runs. I have been. I'm not even going to lie to you right now. I made 6 home run bets yesterday. 2 of them hit, but still profited because Jake Fraley with the Cincinnati Reds was plus 680. I just dropped my phone. Was plus 680 at the time that I bet him, and so it was fantastic odds. He was the worst odds, by the way, but it worked. And new customers, you get a no sweat first bet up to $2,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses. Go to FanDuel.com/locked-on to learn more. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, do you dig the new setup, the new look? I love it. Personally, I love it. I know it's something that Locked On's been rolling out. Thank you so much, Brian. This is awesome. I love the look of it. Just clean. And it's as simple as that. We'll say that now that we're talking about these recruits, which we've been talking about in the Locked On Gators Discord, links in the description if you want to join that. But I'm going to talk about Ethan Callaway first, because Ethan Callaway is someone that we've been talking about with Locked On Gators for a while now. We've talked about him with 2 different recruiting insiders now. And Ethan Callaway, he looks like a Florida, Georgia, LSU, Penn State battle for him right now. He did seem absolutely ecstatic with how the visit went. I know that he was raving about Rob Sale and Darnell Stapleton, which, I mean, come on. If you're a Florida Gators fan, you know that's huge because, well, last year Florida did not recruit well on the offensive line. You had quality, I think, was pretty much there, but I don't think the quantity was. And I think you were good depth-wise, but Rod Kearney being the only like top guy, a little concerning. Caden Jones, I think, was underrated, but still, we're talking about rankings here because that's what we have to do. But I will say, I think it's notable for Ethan Callaway that he talked about, and he's not the only recruit that was on campus that talked about this, but Ethan Callaway talked about how the staff wasn't really selling him on playing for the Florida Gators. Obviously, it came up. I know that he said that he sat down and watched film of himself with Rob Sale and Darnell Stapleton, but he was like, yeah, like they weren't really selling me on playing. They were more selling me on, hey, this is what the next 4 years of your life could look like in Gainesville. Like we could do, these are the facilities you're going to be working with. This is the campus you're going to be at. These are the things we're going to be doing on campus for the next few years. And he really liked that. And I think, I think that's a great selling point to be like, yeah, like you could play here. You can change this class, really. You could change this program. But this is also like the rest of your life that you're not, or the rest of your life here that you're not playing football. This is what it's going to be like. And I love that selling point. I think that's a very underrated selling point. And especially if you're going for the slow burn style that Florida has, when you get that visit, that's a fantastic approach. You could talk about play with these kids while they're not here. You can talk about play with these kids while they're on unofficial visits, or you can have that could be discussed while they're on unofficial visits. But showing them what it's like to be a Florida Gator while they're on the official, beautiful approach there. He'd obviously be a massive ad. He did say that he wants to commit before the season. So I think Florida getting that first official visit, Florida having a strong first official visit and making a strong impression there is a fantastic decision. So if Ethan Callaway does commit before the season, I feel better about Florida's chances today than I did Friday. I feel better about Florida's chances with Ethan Callaway. Whether or not it happens, we'll see, but I feel better about those chances. Talking about a couple of flip candidates, we'll say Dealyn Evans is one where I'll just straight up tell you what I was told is the expectation is for Dealyn Evans to flip to Florida. Whether or not that happens remains to be seen. But what I was told was the expectation is Dealyn Evans will soon decommit from Texas A&M and commit to Florida. Whether or not those happen in one Instagram post or two, we'll see. But that's the expectation here. And I've been told there's a growing expectation in Gainesville that he's going to flip. Okay, not just, this guy told me. No, like there's a growing expectation in Gainesville that Dealyn Evans is going to be a Florida Gator by the end of this recruiting cycle. Okay. Also, Jonathan Echols is someone that we will talk about here because we're going to talk about him a few times. He's someone that spoke about him with John, with Brian, and I watched some of his film and I love it. And I'm not going to pretend I don't love it. I do. Whether or not he does actually fully flip, I love him. I love the film. But Jonathan Echols posted to his Instagram about his visit pictures, and he's the player that I was like talking about, and I was like, oh, like you're a scumbag if you're in his comments talking trash. Same thing with Jeremiah Smith. You're a scumbag if you're doing that. But Jonathan Echols was like crazy to me because Tennessee fans were underneath his comments or were in his comment section underneath this post. And it was nothing short of embarrassing. Like to sit here and go, I saw someone tell Jonathan Echols, I saw someone tell this kid, you can take visits, but you can't go visit the rivals. Here's the thing. If that's your approach, if your mindset is you can take visits, but you can't go visit the rivals, and you get offended by a, again, kid. Like, I don't care. You're a kid until you're in your early 20s at this point. That's my approach to it. Every time, as I get older, you're a kid gets older as well, which, yeah, that's just becoming old. But if that's your approach, if your approach is to tell a kid, you can take visits, but you can't go to this place. Shut the hell up and never open your mouth again if you're just going to spew moronic crap like that. You do not deserve an opinion if that's what you're saying. Okay? Okay, cool beans. I just wanted to get that one out there because you're an idiot, person who commented. Moving on, though. I think if Jonathan Echols does flip, I don't think it happens very soon. I think he's going to wait until the late summer or the fall. And I think that one of those reasons is I think he might want to wait to see what the offense is going to look like. Maybe he waits to see if it's going to be a little more, not pass happy, but modern in the passing game, especially involving the tight end. Like, he is a tight end. He does have to worry about that. So I think that might be an approach to it for him, which, again, like, I have no issue with if he's going to take his time, as long as he eventually makes the decision that is the best one for him. Like, because also that's the most important thing. I understand that we're Florida Gators fans and we want we want to get the best players and we want all this. Totally true. But no one owes you a single thing. And so there's that. But we are going to talk about just other kids that were on campus and how I'm feeling about them, what I'm hearing about them. So we're going to get into that now. And I'm starting off with Kendall Jackson because Kendall Jackson is a player that I am getting increasingly impressed with every time I watch more film on him or hear him speak or anything like that. He's one of those players where it feels like a when, not an if. But especially with Kendall Jackson, because local kid, yeah, great. That's a fantastic selling point. He is a front four player where Florida just brought in Gavin Hill, who's a front four player from the same damn school as Kendall. Like, they are teammates, they're friends, they're 1 year apart grade wise. I don't know about you, but when I played football in high school and I was 1 year apart from someone, I was still pretty close with them. If they were in my position group or not, I was still pretty close with them. And so I think that's a strong selling point, then honestly an underrated selling point for Kendall Jackson. And he's someone that I was like, I think he should commit this week. And if you don't commit him, and if you don't get him committed, it's probably a bad sign. However, he did an interview with, I think it was On 3 after the visit wrapped up. And he said, hey, I've got a commitment. Like, I got the commitment plan that I'm committing in August. I'm sticking to that. So I genuinely don't feel bad anymore. Like, he was one of the players that I was going to be pretty pissed with if he didn't commit. There were two players I was going to be pretty pissed with if they didn't commit, or not pissed with the players, but I was going to be pretty pissed at the staff for not locking it in. That was Kendall Jackson, and that was Kris Jones. Before the weekend was over, I got both of those updates, or not with Kendall Jackson, but with Kris Jones, I got the update that it's either happening at the end of the visit or Monday, or it's probably going to happen after the Georgia visit. And with Kendall Jackson, afterwards, after his visit, it was August, and I'm sticking to it. And so it's hard for me to be mad. Those were the two people that I was going to be upset with. Would have loved to get a bunch of other players, but there was nobody else really visiting that wasn't already committed that I was like, oh, like you need to lock them in this weekend. So for Kendall Jackson, not mad at it. I'll wait till August. I still think he's going to be a Florida Gator when it's all said and done. And really, that's all that matters, right? Now talking about Jordan Ross, who I will say a few weeks ago, I didn't think Florida had a chance. I was like, okay, Georgia, Tennessee, cool beans. Like, it's not going to be a Gator. Then recent weeks happened, and I'm not saying he's now like trending Florida. I am going to say that Florida's picked up some momentum. I will say that he was raving after the visit about Florida and about how impressed he was with the visit. And now feels like Florida, Georgia, and Tennessee are the three schools that are really competing for Jordan Ross. And I will also say this is one of those times where Jordan Ross had his player host was Kelby Collins, which is, oh man, that's a fantastic player host for this coaching staff. Whoever made the decision for it to be Kelby Collins, bravo, or brava, whoever it was, great job. Because Kelby Collins being Jordan Ross's player host, Jordan Ross is from, I believe, Birmingham. So both Alabama natives in Jordan Ross and Kelby Collins. Okay, great. Alabama natives, front four players, and pretty similar. I don't know about play style wise, but positional versatility wise, Kelby Collins, Jordan Ross, pretty similar there. Kelby Collins is a 2023 commit, which is relevant to me. That does mean a lot to me because you have a 2023 commit being the player host. One, he's already fully bought in. He wouldn't have committed to Florida if he wasn't bought in. Like, he had plenty of suitors. So Kelby Collins commits to Florida. He's all bought in on Napier. He's player host for Jordan Ross, helping him buy in on Napier. And for me, that's a fantastic selling point. To go, yeah, we have someone who we know is bought in, who is still very fresh on campus. He hasn't been exhausted yet. Great decision. I don't know who made the decision, but you deserve more money, whoever you are. Now, David Stone and LJ McCray are two more players that we're going to talk about, because I think for one big selling point for me, or not even selling point, but just reading the tea leaves, I guess we'll say, for both of them, is that they were both having a blast on social media. Okay. So I would say they were both having a blast on social media. That's why I wanted to talk about David Stone again. I know I talked about him earlier. I wanted to touch on that because they were having an absolute blast. I don't think Florida gets both LJ McCray and David Stone, but I will say right now, Florida should be considered the favorite to add LJ McCray to the 2024 class. One thing that LJ McCray talked about with this coaching staff is that he is someone who is versatile, and he wants to be used as a versatile. Like, he wants to continue to be versatile in college. And he talked about that being a big selling point from this Florida Gators coaching staff with Austin Armstrong, Sean Spencer, where they've talked about playing LJ McCray at the F and the Jack. The F is what Florida calls that defensive end. I'm assuming the F is because it's the 5-tech spot. 5-tech just means lined up on the outside shoulder of the tackle. So I'm assuming that's why they call it the F, just because, I don't know, there's a million reasons to call positions that are all the same thing, different things, but that's what they do. Whether you call it, star also gets called spur, and some places call it the buck, even though the buck is also a pass rushing linebacker spot like the Jack. I don't know why they call it, and I don't really care, but the F is the DN spot that Princely Umanmielen played last year, and the Jack is that stand-up edge rusher spot that Princely Umanmielen is going to play this year. So I think that when you're selling the versatility and you go, hey, we have this guy who has played them both or will finish playing them both, is a big selling point where you go, yeah, we're putting our money where our mouth is right here. We have someone who's done it and is going to continue to do it. And we have more people who are going to join him in doing that. So I think for LJ McCray, I'm saying I think he's going to be a Florida Gator. Like I think Florida should be considered heavy favorites. And if I'm putting a crystal ball, which I don't do that, but I'm putting it for LJ McCray. And the last player is Jalen Crawford. I will say I hadn't talked much about Jalen Crawford, mostly because I was like, okay, he's LSU or Auburn. LSU, Auburn. That's why I was like, I'm not going to talk about him too much because I don't think he's going to be a Gator. That seems like a waste of time. Now he's been talking about, oh, like Florida's in there. Like it's Florida, LSU, and Auburn. Like those are the three that are in my top group right now. It's impressive to see the attention that he's getting from Florida, that he said both Billy Napier and Corey Raymond are in constant contact with him, trying to lock him in, making him feel prioritized. And I love that approach because he also said that he wants to commit in July. That's next month. Florida's going full court press on him because, like I said, Florida's a slow burn style. Most of the time, they're going to chip away and they're going to do all those things. Yes. However, Florida going basically full court press on him because they know he's committing in July. And then once you get him committed, you touch base, you keep him locked in, but you can put less attention on him, more on recruits that are not committed, and you can or finish some flips committed elsewhere, and you put more attention there, and that's how you build this class. Basically, we've talked so much about staggering positions here, staggering attention week after week here with Florida. So Jalen Crawford, hopefully a Florida Gator, but again, right now I think Florida is still maybe right behind LSU and Auburn, but there's still time in this battle. And so Jalen Crawford, maybe a Florida Gator. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. We'll be back tomorrow to talk more Florida Gators football, probably more Florida Gators recruiting. For your second listen, check out Locked On SEC, hosted by Chris Gordy of Sports 790. Best coverage on the best conference, including the best university, the University of Florida. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olson. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Whole Nine Sports, Giants Country, and NFL 33, and I will see you all tomorrow.